Good afternoon. It's Janine of Janine Peers here with our Reimagining Leadership and Rebuilding Community Connections. We are excited to have a topic today called Divine Nine Time, where we're talking about, how people are feeling with respect to the continuing pandemic, as well as Black Lives Matter. And as a licensed practitioner for the International Institute of Restorative Practices, I am going to facilitate this dialogue. I am fortunate to have a few people here today so far. I know there will be others that will join us throughout the time that we're here. I know that some people will have to leave early, and I appreciate you participating while you are here. So thank you everyone who has showed up a little early and on time. I appreciate it. Let's start off with some introductions. I like to build community. So if you can just say your name, say one thing about yourself that describes how you are personality-wise that matches the first letter of your first name. Yes, I'm putting you on the spot, Mr. Wilson. And also your college, university. Shout out your university. Shout out yourself, your first name, and something special or unique about the letter of your first name. So my name is Janine. I am a proud Howard University grad, and I am joyful. I will call on you to be able to speak. So Mr. Wilson, you're up next.
Oh, wow. Hey, Roger Wilson. I am a city council member here in the city of Frederick. I'm a member of the great Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity forever, okay? And I went to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, A to Z chapter there. And I guess one word that would describe ready. How about that? Ready. Ready for what's coming next and ready for leadership. How about that?
Thank you so much. I like that. Nicolia, it's on you, representing with the Delta Sigma Theta sign. I see you. Go ahead, Nicolia.
All right. Thank you. So my name is Nicolia Gooding. I am a proud two-time Howard University graduate. Thank you very much. And the letter, okay, N. So notorious.
Ooh.
That's my letter. That's my word.
Notorious. We're not going to tell on ourselves in our Howard University days and how we used to go to the club dressed up like, Bump Biggie and all. But yes, that was us. Fun times, but we both have 2 degrees, so we survived, right? So, Mr. Allen, you're up next. Thank you, Nicole.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity, Marcus Allen, proud graduate of the University of South Florida. I am not part of the Divine Nine, but I'm so glad to see my brothers and sisters here. One word that would describe me is meticulous.
Meticulous. All right. And that's a great quality for an administrator to have. So thank you for being meticulous.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
Stacy, thank you.
All right. So I guess the first thing, I went to Western Carolina University. I think the next thing I'm supposed to answer is, who am I as far as my name? I would say steady, which I think that's what Stacy means anyway in some language. But anyway, what other things I'm supposed to ask? I couldn't remember.
That's about it. What do you do, Stacy? You want to tell us what you do for a living?
Yes, I'm in finance. I am a day trader.
All right. He's about that money, huh? Financial literacy. We might have to have an episode with Community Janine Cares and have him talk about financial wisdom and planning, because that's important to our community as well. So thank you for being here. I am going to get us started. We are going to be discussing just kind of our feelings. Restorative practices teaches us that it's important to build community, but to also reflect. And so the first thing that we're going to do as we wait for others to hopefully arrive is talk about community. And I want to hear the impact of what's going on in your community, so I am going to guide you with specific circle prompts. Is everyone ready? All right. So the first prompt, for me as a school administrator, I have been working from home since March the 13th. March the 13th, quarantine, restrictions. If I go outside, I have to wear a mask. And so the question that I ask to you, as you too have been quarantined, give me 2 sentences that describe the things that you have been thinking about since March the 13th. And for you, Nicolia, I know that California was a little bit ahead, so your date is probably even earlier. So we're going to go non-sequentially. With restorative practices, the goal is to ensure that everyone participates. And so hopefully I will get everyone, but I don't want to have anybody forced to participate. And so this time I'm going to allow for volunteers to speak. I am going to be mindful of those who have not spoken. So even if you don't go first, at some point I hope that you will. So first, a volunteer to kind of give me 2 sentences that describe the things that have been on your mind since March the 13th. I can see you unmute. Mr. Allen was first and then Mr. Morris.
All right. Well, thank you again for this opportunity. What's been on my mind since March 13th, I've just been reflective on all the news information about this pandemic that we're in that I don't think many of us have seen before, and just how to, just do my best to use the knowledge that I have to continue to keep my family safe and healthy, by following the guidelines of, wearing masks, washing hands, social distancing, and things of that nature. Because from what I hear on the news and what I've read, this pandemic is really impacting African Americans in a very big way, especially African American males. So I try to take all the necessary precautions. I choose to stay home and work from home and limit my time of going into the building to do things if I don't have to. So that's how I'm feeling, just being reflective and just moving forward carefully using the information that I have.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Morris, you're up next.
Well, for me, I think the first thing I was thinking of is uneasy. I was just riding downtown Raleigh probably about an hour ago, and everything is boarded up. It's pretty quiet. It's empty. So there's a definitely a uneasiness that has set in months that we've been kind of on lockdown. The next thing I probably think of is just being refocused. This has allowed me to do a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have otherwise had the time to do. And now I can actually, whether it's studying the market longer or even just doing some things outside of the market, I have that time to refocus and get those things done during this time. So, you know, it's kind of on the opposite stream, being focused and being uneasy, but it's just a part of life right now.
Awesome, thank you so much for those thoughts. So far, I've heard a lot of different thoughts and good thoughts. And so, okay. Mr. Wilson, I see that you are unmuted as well. You want to go?
Yeah, sure. Over the last few months, I tell you, I've taken the opportunity to do some reflection as well. And also trying to, identify things that are around the house that I've kind of put off doing, addressing those. And I tell you, being still is a challenge for me because I'm used to being involved in the community, going out every day, leaving the home at 8 o'clock, coming back at, 10 o'clock at night. I think it's required me to sit and be still and kind of evaluate what is my purpose and what makes me happy in life. So I've taken the opportunity to, just reflect on my life. And I think after this whole pandemic and being quarantined in your house, I think it's changed my life. I think this period that I'm going to look back on 5 years from now, this was a pivotal moment, and it's been really great. It's really required me to be still, and I think that's a benefit for the rest of my life.
Awesome. And I'll go, and then Nicolia, it'll be on you. I think for me, I definitely have been very reflective. When I think about restorative practices and the work that I do in my professional life during the day with, parents and students and staff members and the Department of Student Services in our district, I do a lot of pushing of them to be reflective. And so two things that I feel like I have really done is been present, and really present to what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I'm observing. And I've been very intentional with what I actually do, because, you know, clearly what we do is relevant during this time, right? So that is what I think: reflection and being intentional and being purpose driven in all that I have done. And so my life is changing a little bit as a result of all of these thoughts and reflections and actions that, you know, sometimes when you are so busy, you don't even take the time to really be intentional, to be present, to be reflective about what you're actually dealing with and what's working for you and what's not working for you. And so I would agree with you, Roger, about the, you know, the life-changing experiences, basically. So Nicolia, last but not least, my soror.
Well, this is a very thoughtful question, and I totally appreciate you asking it. One of the things that I think I've been doing is defining self-care for myself. Like, for me personally, what does that mean? And what are the activities that are included in self-care for me? Like, how do I establish the boundaries necessary within my household with so much of all four of us together, my two little kids and my husband? How do I create that? So that's been one. I've been thinking a lot about possibility. Like, what's possible for some of the things that I had on my horizon. I had already quartered out this entire year and the activities I was going to do in each quarter. And I have to move things over to the next quarter. And then I just made a COVID-19 block. Like my, what is that license we have to do? The Real ID. You know, like, I'm gonna have to just, you know, my little to-do list. That's really, I just learned, that's really how I cope. I get these wins, consistent wins, and that's what makes me happy. It brings me joy. And to be in a space where I can't really create that or control it, I have felt the walls closing in. So I've had to really learn to revamp myself and find a new way to exist within the confines of what is present, and figure out what I can control, the small things I can control. And luckily, I have this wonderful best friend who started Janine Cares, and she only talks about restorative practices. So I've been able to look inside and say, like, okay, how can I be restorative with my kids today? How can I be restorative with my husband today? And let that be my focus. Because I didn't realize my wins were all outside of the confines of my household. And I've had to start making them be more in my house. And wow, who knew? I'll just end there. So much more to say. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for sharing, Nicolia. We're going to welcome Demetrius. Thank you for joining us today. He is a member of Omega Psi Phi, so we're kind of represented with a lot of our Divine Nine. Not everybody yet, so I do hope some more people will join. So it's Janine from Janine Cares, where we're caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting our youth for the future. Today's topic is reimagining leadership. So we're specifically looking at, you know, the leadership that's in place and the leadership that has guided the actions and decisions during this moment of pause or moment of steel with respect to our pandemic, and looking at the most present for many of us as African Americans, the Black Lives Matters and all of that, and how it's impacting each of us. And so I am, as an International Institute of Restorative Practices licensed trainer, guiding the conversation. I am using circle prompts. If we were together and able to be physically together, we would all be sitting in a circle looking at each other, because it's really important for us to, you know, make everybody feel comfortable and feel trusted. And so when I facilitate these dialogues in a school setting or in a business or organization, and I am available for consulting, just in case you're wondering, there is the opportunity for you to see everybody. And it's something like sitting around your dinner table, if you have a family and you're sitting at dinner, or when you remember growing up, it just builds that trust in that community. And so across our district, my title is the Achievement Specialist for School Culture. I've been in education for 20 years. I served as a principal for 3 years, and now I am training the entire county of Frederick in the implementation of restorative practices. So I'm excited about it. As you just heard my best friend share, I talked to her. Ironically, as I did trainings with staff, one of my areas of growth too, Nicolia, was being more restorative in my household. And so I was fortunate to have the training and to be very restorative in my household, to the point of being very vulnerable about my feelings and my emotions and what I need from each of the stakeholders in my home, including my husband and my children. Having a blended family was a challenge. And so being intentional, as I mentioned as my word earlier, in order to build relationships, I put in a lot of work for the last 3 years in terms of being able to be present and be intentional with relationship building. And so just a crash course on what restorative practices looks like. Bear with me for a second. Think about your job, think about your home, think about your favorite teacher, think about your best friend, okay? Does everybody have those visions in their mind, their best friend, their favorite teacher, maybe their favorite mentor, maybe the person that they like to hang out with the most? Now, I'm gonna walk you through the social discipline window, because I believe that every conversation that's restorative, you need to be able to identify with why we should be restorative. And so I'm going to use some examples and some non-examples. Think about a person who is high on control, but low on support. Can anybody give me one word to describe that person? High on control, but low on support.
I don't want to offend, but would you say the president?
Okay, a president.
I was thinking the same thing.
We will say a president, maybe that is high in control and high in support. We can say that. Okay, we won't name any particular president, but yes, a president of an organization who would be high on control and low on support. We in the restorative land would call that a punitive style practitioner. So moving on, think of a person who is low on control and low on support. What word would you use to describe that person? Give me a word and not a person. Give me a word to describe that person. If they're low on control and low on support.
Tired.
Tired, very nice. And I'm gonna keep going because Stacey, that's great. What we call that in the restorative world is a neglectful practitioner. The third category, and we're going through a box here, is a person who is high on support and low on control. What would you use to describe that person? High on support, very supportive, but absolutely no control.
Powerless.
Powerless. We call it permissive. Very nice. And finally, when we reimagine leadership, we are looking for leaders who understand the importance of being very much in control, but also needing to understand what supports need to be in place to ensure that everyone is able to meet those high expectations. Have you ever had a boss who wrote you up for little things that, you know, you weren't clear on the expectations? Have you ever had a boss who, you know, to save themselves maybe wrote you up just to, you know, cover what they didn't do to teach you? Punitive style leaders, while they may be successful in making things happen, chances are they're not very well liked by people, and they're not extremely effective with all people. And so as we talk about the reimagining of leadership, I want us to think about how all leaders, if anyone is a leader, they should be restorative in nature. In order to be restorative in nature, you must know what restorative means. Restorative means doing things with people. And so the research says that people in positions of authority, presidents, assistant principals are more likely to acquire a change in the people that they are serving if you are doing things with them. And so, for example, as a building principal at Ballinger Creek Middle School, I did things like diversity night to celebrate others. I did things like a staff parent basketball game to make sure our parents knew that they were valued as much as our staff members. I did things like PBIS incentives where we said, okay, students, if you do not have a referral, meaning an infraction, then you get to do this for a certain amount of time. And it was fun activities. And so with that in mind, I think it's really important for us to understand that as we reimagine leadership, we want to rebuild community connections. Does everyone see how this is all coming together? We want to welcome and pause right now to allow two people to introduce themselves. Welcome Christine Samuel. She is also a member of the Divine Nine, and welcome to Demetrius, also Green. So please introduce yourself. In the beginning, Christine, we shared our name, we shared what we do for a living, and we also shared one word that describes the first letter of the name. So I said I'm Janine, Howard University grad, and I'm joyful. So Christine, tell me your name, your university that you graduated from, and share with me something with this letter C that describes your personality. Demetrius, if you're ready, you'll be after Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine, and I graduated from Grambling State University. That's where I became one of the Divine Nines at there. So, and I'm an assistant principal at West Frederick Middle School. And see, what describes me is caring, because that's something that I feel like I do it just without even knowing. It's effortless for me to do it. So that's why I know C is for caring.
All right, and which organization of the Divine Nine are you representing today?
Sigma Gamma Rho.
All right, all right. So we have Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho represented, Kappa Alpha Psi. All right, Demetrius Green, you're up.
All right, I'm Demetrius Green. I graduated from undergrad from Troy State University. That's in Alabama. I'm a Omega Psi Phi, Spring 95, and a word that describes me with C.
A D, your first letter of your name.
Oh, D. Oh, okay, all right.
And you can't
Well,
say
I'm dynamite. All right. Yeah, that's good.
We'll take dynamite. All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for that introduction. We're going to continue on. I guess I want to know, as we conclude this session, the first part of the session related to the pandemic and the crisis, I'd like to know non-sequentially for anybody who would like to share, what has been the hardest thing for you as the pandemic continues to occur, as we continue to have restrictions, as we continue to be on quarantine? What has been the hardest thing for you? And I'm watching you unmute, so whoever would like to respond to that, please do so. Nicolia?
Sorry. So I would say one of the hardest things that's been for me is the loss of connection or the ability to be with my women to recharge. Like, I don't know that I knew how, did it a lot. I just didn't know how much I actually needed it. And now that I don't really have it, I find myself struggling in ways that I don't think I struggled as much before, going a lot lower in the suckhole than I think I would have before, because that physical connection of women seeing you and feeling your pain and telling you, talking to you about it, hasn't happened quite as much. And we have so many Zoom calls. It's really not the greatest to get on a Zoom call to talk about the stuff that you would have talked about over coffee. So perhaps that's something I should implement now, but that's been my greatest loss. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I'd like to say, during this time I've lost loved ones, and, it's not the same, just seeing the memorial service on Zoom. You want to be there to hug and care for your family and your friends during this time. So that's been a challenge as well. I would love to go to Florida to see my grandmother, but some of the elderly are the ones who are most at risk. So just not being able to travel and see them and be with them as we had been doing, you know what I mean? Staying together, not just over Zoom or Google Meet or anything like that. So that's just been a real challenge.
Thank you both for sharing. Anyone else?
Yeah, Janine, I'll just say that I'm an extrovert, and so I get my energy from other people. And so the ability to not interact with people face to face, be around people, has been a challenge for me. And I thank God for technology like Zoom, in bringing people. At least you see people's faces, and you're talking with people and interacting with people. Janine, I thank you for what you're doing in Frederick County and what you're doing as far as bringing people together and actually talking. We could solve a lot of problems in our community by just listening and talking them out. And you've been able to bring a diverse group of people together to your Janine Cares. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and applaud you for what you're doing.
Thank you for that. I have had 25 interviews. If you have not done so already, please follow me on Janine Cares on YouTube. Remember to like, subscribe, and share the videos. There are 25 individuals that I deem legacy leaders that have shared their stories, including Mr. Wilson, or Alderman Wilson, who has shared his story about life. I have had our Board of Education members come on. I've had doctors and lawyers come and share their stories. And then they are doing just as we're doing right now, reflecting about their experiences during COVID as it continues and the pandemic continues. And so I'm gonna stop now because I wanna move on. I know that some people have to leave a little bit early, and I kind of wanna end early, seeing as though we don't have the crowd that I anticipated. And so we're gonna aim to be done in about 20 or so minutes. I wanna move now into the Black Lives Matter topic. And so the first question in a round robin, and I only need one word from you. Tell me, when you saw the video or you heard about the video of George Floyd, what is one word that you would use to describe your reaction? Just one word. So everybody think about it. Before you give me that one word, I'm going to take you to a video that you're going to listen to a lawyer explain exactly what happened. And if I can, I'm going to share my screen so that you can get a visual. And so please tell me if you can see this once I get there. All right, can you see my Facebook page right now, everyone?
Yes.
All right, and so listen as we listen to a description, a detailed incident of that evening.
And George Floyd represents so many more people who have died at the hands of the police. But let's do focus for a minute on May 25th, and let's do focus on the killing of George Floyd. And so, Paul, can you help us set the stage, first factually and then legally? You have dissected the evidence.
Sorry, I was trying to make it bigger, but that didn't work.
Did you see, and what should we be paying attention to?
Once again, trying to make it bigger. How about I not? How about we just, there it is. All right, can everybody still see?
We should be paying attention to the facts. On May 25th, someone called the police from a grocery store and said that a man had tried to use a counterfeit bill to buy cigarettes. The police showed up. The store owner explained that the man who had tried to use a counterfeit bill was around the corner in a car. Two officers approached the car. There were three people in the car. Mr. Floyd was sitting in the driver's seat. another passenger in the front seat, third passenger in the back. One officer walks up to the driver's window and talks to Mr. Floyd and immediately takes out his gun and points the gun at Mr. Floyd and orders him and all of the others to get out of the car. They all exit the car. According to the police report, Mr. Floyd initially resisted arrest, meaning he didn't want the handcuffs on him. But once he had the handcuffs on him, according to the police report, he became compliant. The police walked him around the corner from where his car was parked to where their cars were parked in front of the store. Mr. Floyd said that he was claustrophobic and he didn't want to get in the back seat of the car. The officers tried to push him in the car. It was difficult. Mr. Floyd was a very tall man. And so they took him to the other side. And there, the police report uses some interesting language. It says that Mr. Floyd went to the ground face down and still handcuffed. Mr. Floyd went to the ground, still down and handcuffs. So we've all seen the horrific video. He is lying on the ground, face down. His hands are behind his back, handcuffed. The officers then restrained him. Former Officer Clavin put his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck. Two other officers restrained him by the back and by the leg. By this time, a number of passerbys had gathered. They looked at the scene. They tried to help Mr. Floyd, but the officers wouldn't let them. Mr. Floyd said that he couldn't breathe. He said that a couple of times. Mr. Floyd said, "I'm going to die." Mr. Floyd called for his dead mother. The officers restrained him for almost 10 minutes. Officer Clavin had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 minutes and 53 seconds of this happened after Mr. Floyd was non-responsive. So one of the officers said we should take a pulse. This was about 7 minutes in. When the officer took the pulse, he found none. The officers continued to press down on Mr. Floyd's body for almost another 3 minutes. Mr. Floyd was taken to the hospital and he was pronounced dead. Let's think about the law. First, the arrest of Mr. Floyd. The arrest of Mr. Floyd was for passing counterfeit currency.
All right, so we're going to stop it there. The question that I have for you is, when you heard the story or you saw the video, or as a result of what you just listened to, what is the one word that describes your feelings about that incident? You only get one word.
Angry.
Anyone else?
Disappointed.
Thank you, Roger.
Upset.
Thank you, Demetrius.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Christine.
Unnecessary.
Thank you, Nicolia.
Again.
You said again, okay. Fear. Fear is my word. And so that's, if anyone, and I'll hear from two people that maybe want to expand on their word choice. Just two people. Tell me why you chose the word that you chose.
I'd like to say, as a people in this country, we've been dealing with this situation since the end of slavery. Even, I wanted to say, I know a lot of atrocities happened during slavery, but even during Reconstruction afterwards with the Black Codes, Jim Crow, the Ku Klux Klan, this is just a continuation from what was happening then when we thought Blacks were on the rise, but we fell off a cliff with all of these atrocities. That's why I said again.
Thank you. One more person. Tell me why you picked the word that you picked. All right, so I'll go and I chose the word fear. I mean, I have a 6-year-old African-American male. I have a 6-year-old well-behaved African-American male who follows directions most of the time. I had a conversation with my line sister about how I'm teaching my son at the age of 6 that when he gets pulled over, at the age of 16 or 18, if he gets pulled over, that he will do this. He will put his hands up. He will say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to whoever he interacts with. He will be the most respectful individual that could ever engage with an officer. That's what I'm training him to do at the age of 6. And my line sister turned to me and said, Janine, so what? Because that's not the issue. And so as we reimagine leadership and we rebuild community, it's time for leaders to understand that their role is not easy. Your charge is huge, and your voice must be heavy as you determine and sit in places where you are capable of making changes, as you empower others in your community to stand behind you, to stand with you, to make a little bit of noise so that people understand that we are tired of it happening again and again, and that we demand and we deserve, as everyone else, equity and justice for all. And I am so excited that Frederick County has began the conversations, has started with our youth leading the conversations. In Frederick County, we had a march with almost 5,000 people attending, skillfully executed by our youth. Do you hear me when I say youth? I'm talking about high school age students organizing a skillful protest where there was people of all nations gathered in Frederick who took a knee together. White, Black, Asian, Puerto Rican, all races, all religions there, who put their fist in the air by request of the facilitators, the youth that led. So when I talk about reimagining leadership and rebuilding community, if all communities are not doing this, and I'm so proud as we look at the news across the country, across the nation, around the world, and we see everyone, not just some, everyone responding to the disappointment, as someone said, of what's going on. And so I charge you, and I thank you, every one of you who decided to take 30 minutes from their Saturday afternoon plans, because some of you joined at the last minute. Some of you planned to attend. I thank you for leading. You are learning what you need to learn. You are empowering yourselves and others. You are thinking, I know, because I know each and every one of you personally, you're thinking about what action steps you're going to take as you continue to lead in your respective organizations. And dream big. I am a dreamer. I believe in every aspect of my life that I'm going to have the perfect ending to every story. And as I do that, I am challenging and empowering each of you to lead and learn with me. Again, it's Janine from Janine Cares, where we are caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting our youth for the future. And now it's time to do a little bit of action planning. We've talked about it, we've discussed it, we felt how we felt, because I did replay that emotional episode reminder of what the events of that night entailed. What are we going to do about it? What are you seeing being done? And what are your suggestions? So as we conclude with the last circle prompt, I have modified this to be a little bit shorter for the sake of time. Please share with me one action that you think leaders, parents, or communities need to be doing to respond to and address the issues that surround Black Lives Matter.
I would just like to say just one simple phrase: I won't be silent anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Anyone else?
I will just say, I challenge everyone, even on this call, to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, get to know other groups, ethnic groups, and learn about other cultures. Be open to that, be vulnerable. I think it's very important. So being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Thank you.
I personally would like to see more policies in place. I know that right now you see a lot of photo ops, as I say, and you know everybody's putting their artwork out, and that's great. But I would like to see more policies in place, and that starts with making sure that we vote at the polls, and we also support our local representatives that have some sort of equality backing them. So that's what I feel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else, as we close out this session, anyone else have a suggestion or something that they have seen that they believe is going to be effective?
I would like to add and also issue a challenge to everyone. I think, as you said, with the Divine Nine and just people in the community, we all took a vow to let our voice speak for those who aren't able to or aren't available at different times to speak. And part of that is kind of like what Mr. Wilson is doing, not kind of like, is what Mr. Wilson is doing, but it's, I'm on a couple of commissions. We speak directly to the city council and the city manager, who employs our police chief to talk about the practices that are happening in the city in which I live and to affect change. And that's more Black people, more people of color, more diversity on these commissions brings upon the change that the community needs, so that everyone is represented and has a voice. So that's one suggestion.
Absolutely, and that's what that is what we mean by restorative practices. And because I'm a licensed trainer for the International Institute of Restorative Practices, a lot of the trainings that I attend are with people from around the world. And so I agree with that whole mindset of being uncomfortable and getting to know others. Anyone else? Final thoughts? All right. Not enough wait time, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and end. If you can give me one word that describes your experiences today with this conversation. This was blank. One word. Mr. Wilson, this was?
Fantastic.
Thank you. Nicolia, this was?
Inspiring.
Inspiring. Thank you. Christine, this was?
I'm like uplifting.
Uplifting. Demetrius, this was?
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Thank you. Mr. Allen, this was?
Informative.
Informative. And Stacy, last but not least, this was?
Reflective.
Reflective. Thank you so much for joining today. Again, it's Janine from Janine Cares, reminding you that we are caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting. I'm challenging everyone to lead, learn all you can do, empower others, act with an action plan, and dream big. Have a wonderful afternoon and be blessed, everyone.